Hi everyone, I'm Bertine from Lost Again, a small studio in the Netherlands. We focus on experiments with storytelling and this is one of them. This is Journey of the Onset, a game that asks you to read through various passages of a journal from an alien world. The problem, of course, is that the journal was heavily damaged and so your task is to puzzle together the chronology of events. This is important, or so you are told. And this is not actually what the project is about. See, this is a project that is about your truth being questioned. So when you pick the chronology and you go to the next screen, the game will first compliment you and then tell you you're wrong. And then it gets worse. So I wanted to design a storytelling experiment that's about truth and truth being questioned. We've all had to deal with falsehood, fake news, lies, conspiracies, and of course, unfortunately, the people who believe in this. And when people are told they're wrong, they often react strangely indignant. I mean, I often do so myself. I wanted to see if I could make a project where the player creates a truth for themselves, and that this truth is then being questioned, and then make the player consider how they feel about their truth being questioned. Now, a lot about games is about being right or wrong, classical success and fail states. And I started thinking if we could use that against the player. So have them chase a success state and then claim they failed, but without them believing it's due to their own lack of skill. I started out picking a subject that has no specific emotions attached to it. We don't want people's actual long-held beliefs interfere with the intent of the project. But we also want them to be engaged so that the conclusion resonates with the player. Now fortunately, there are a lot of interesting psychological and storytelling tricks we can use for this. First of all, within the body of the text itself, we prime the player about specific topics. Priming is a psychological technique where certain subjects are put in the top reference slots of a person. So it will be among the first things they consider when thinking about a certain subject. In this specific case, we prime them with talks about truth and freedom, but also with actions certain characters take within the story. We get them in the mood for the conclusion. Next, I had to assure that there was no actual truth in the end. This is because the game itself is not about the player being actually right or wrong. So all the journey entries had to be written without a chronology in mind. With that came the additional challenge. It also had to be interesting for the reader to be engaged with it. For that I used a technique called the rules of suspense, which essentially state that in order to make a suspenseful scene, your protagonist's goal must be sympathetic and yet the antagonist has a clear advantage over the protagonist. Simple but immensely effective. I also had to make sure that whatever order the player was going to pick, it was not in any way biased by my own decisions. So the countries that the journal entries are attached to are randomly selected from a list of 20. Finally, it was important that the real sequence was completely fake, so I randomized this as well. The results of this prototype so far have been quite positive, but I did find there were ways to phrase things better so they were a little bit more efficient at achieving the goal. The other thing I'm considering experimenting with is not to randomize the real sequence, but to make it an iteration of the sequence that the players are sending in. Now at the time of taping this, I'm still experimenting with the text and the techniques themselves. One of the challenges I encounter is still to write the end text as effective as possible, and I've noticed that there's still a lot of refinement it needs to get the right impact. Besides that, I also want to harvest the chronologies of the player and the randomized chronologies in order to generate a player truth, so the truth that the player wants, and the game's truth, the truth that the player accepts. Both of these sequences are interesting statements about the way how our society adopts truths that, well, if you just yell loud enough, society might start believing you. So yeah, I'm super excited to use more psychological mechanics in gameplay and to use my experiences with running live action roleplay games and digital games. And so this experiment is really just the beginning for me. Thank you for watching and goodbye!